In the middle of a city that never slept, where streets buzzed with voices and machines, there lived a young woman named Liana. Every morning she woke to a world already awake, the sound of car horns, phone alerts, footsteps echoing below her window. The noise had become the rhythm of her life, but deep inside she felt something quietly fading, her focus, her peace, her sense of self. Liana worked in marketing, a world built on attention. Her days overflowed with meetings, campaigns, deadlines, and the constant hum of chatter. Words were her craft, but they had begun to lose meaning. At night, when the city dimmed and screens went dark, she would stare at her reflection on the laptop screen and feel the weight of the day's noise pressing in on her. Behind her tired eyes, there was a soft cry for stillness, a longing she didn't know how to answer. One evening, she whispered to herself, "I need silence." And for the first time, she meant it. The next morning, Liana made a bold choice. She turned off her phone. Immediately, anxiety rushed in. Her hands twitched to check for messages. Her mind panicked at the thought of being unreachable, disconnected from the digital heartbeat of her work. The quiet that followed felt almost deafening, not peaceful, but strange. Seeking distraction, she left her apartment and wandered through the city. The world roared around her, horns blaring, vendors shouting, music spilling from cafes. Yet somehow, she felt more alone in that crowd than ever before. As she walked, she noticed something she'd never truly seen. People talking but not listening, faces lit by screens instead of sunlight, laughter that sounded hollow. It struck her how much noise humanity created to avoid its own thoughts. After an hour of wandering, she found herself in front of an old park she'd never noticed before. The gate creaked as she entered. Children laughed near a fountain, pigeons fluttered over the benches, and an elderly man sat feeding them quietly. Something about his stillness pulled her in. She sat nearby, hoping the calm would somehow rub off on her. After a moment, the man looked at her and smiled. "You seem lost in the noise," he said softly. "Most people are. But silence can teach you more than sound ever could." Curious, Liana asked, "Teach me then. How can silence teach anything? It feels empty, like a pause between things that matter." The man chuckled. That's the mistake we all make. Silence isn't the absence of life. It's where life truly breathes. It's the space where truth has room to speak." His name was Matteo, a retired schoolteacher who came to the park every morning. For most of his life, he'd lived like everyone else, rushing, worrying, chasing, until one day his body demanded he stop. A heart scare forced him into stillness. "At first," Matteo said, "the quiet terrified me. It made me face thoughts I'd hidden under years of noise. But slowly, I discovered that peace doesn't live in the absence of problems. It lives in the space we create between them." Liana listened, and something in his words opened a door inside her. The sound of the fountain became rhythmic, like breathing, like time itself slowing down. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. The moment felt sacred in its simplicity. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking of tomorrow. She was here. Liana began visiting the park every morning before work. She called it her hour of quiet. She'd sit near the fountain, sometimes beside Matteo, sometimes alone, and let the stillness wash through her. She no longer brought her phone. Instead, she listened to her breath, the wind through the trees, the quiet murmurs of life she'd always ignored. One morning, Matteo said, "The world sells noise because it fears silence, but all wise souls, monks, poets, saints, found truth in quiet moments. When the mind is still, it becomes a mirror. you finally see who you really are." His words stayed with her. Liana began carrying silence into her daily life. When co-workers argued, she waited before speaking. When stress surged, she took a deep breath instead of reacting. Slowly, her calm became contagious. People began turning to her for clarity. Her boss called her a quiet leader. Her friends said she had changed, softer, stronger, centered. She smiled and said, "I started listening, not to the world, but to the silence beneath it." And she realized something profound. Silence wasn't a void, it was a voice, calm, patient, and infinitely wise. Months passed, and one morning, Liana went to the park to find Mateo's bench empty. Only the pigeons remained. A small, folded note lay on the wooden seat. It read, "Keep listening. The silence will always answer." She smiled through her tears, realizing that her teacher had given her his final lesson. He had returned to the same quiet he once feared, the eternal silence that holds everything. She sat down, closed her eyes, and listened. The fountain still sang, the breeze still whispered through the trees, and within her something steady and serene began to hum. The city beyond the park was as loud as ever, but it no longer disturbed her. She had found a new rhythm, one that moved at the pace of her breath. From that day on, whenever life became too noisy, Liana didn't run away. She simply returned to the quiet within her heart. She understood now. Silence wasn't the absence of sound, it was the presence of peace. There is a power in calm that no amount of noise can imitate. In a world that rewards volume, stillness is rebellion. Silence teaches us to hear what matters: our truth, our breath, our humanity. So, take a moment today to unplug, sit in the quiet, let it feel awkward, let it feel new. And then when your thoughts finally settle, listen, truly listen, to what the silence is trying to say. Because sometimes the loudest answers come in the softest moments. If you like this story, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one. Thank you for staying with us. See you in the next story with new thoughts and new lessons. Until then, stay well and stay peaceful.